Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada. All glories to our revered speaker for today, His Grace Sarvatma Prabhu. And all glories to the assembled Vaishnavi devotees. And all glories to those who will be watching this, either live or later on YouTube. Today is Friday, the last day of the busy week. And fortunately for us, we have His Grace Sarvatma Prabhu who will be speaking to us from the Nectarian Srimad Bhagavatam. And like I was saying earlier on, Prabhuji needs no introduction. And I'll share something very interesting with you, Prabhuji, because I had some message from Her Imperial Majesty Divya Devi yesterday. See, this is very, very special in the sense that Prabhuji, who is here speaking to us today, had something very, very urgent to attend to today, but he somehow sacrificed that particular important thing. I will tell you what it is to be here with us today. So we are very, very much grateful for your association with us today, even though we do appreciate it all the time, but specifically today is very special. So thank you so much, Prabhuji. And without further ado, we may put the verse on the screen and you take it over from here. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you very much. I think just a technical thing that you were recording, but the recording stopped. I'm not sure you want to start it again.
Yeah, it is being recorded now.
Okay.
Yes.
So here's the verse. We're in the sixth chapter of the third canto, towards the end of it. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayat Nasta Prayesha Vadresu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamash Loke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Ete Varna Swadharmena Yajanti Swa Gurum Harim Shradayatma Vishuddhyartam Yajatha Sahavritivi. And you can go directly to the translation. Actually, let's do word per word because I want to show that all these varna, orders of society, swadharmena, by one's own occupational duties, yajanti, worship, swagurum, with the spiritual master, harim, the supreme personality of Godhead, shradaya, with faith and devotion, atma, self, vishuddhyartam, for purifying, yat, from whom, jata, born, saha, along with britivi, occupational duty. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. All these different social divisions are born with their occupational duties and living conditions from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, for unconditional life and self-realization, one has to worship the Supreme Lord under the direction of the Spiritual Master. Translation and purport now. Since they are born from different parts of the body of the Supreme Lord in His gigantic form, all living entities in all parts of the entire universe are supposed to be eternal servitors of the Supreme Body. Every part of our own body, such as the mouth, hands, thighs, and legs, is meant to render service to the whole. That is their constitutional position. In subhuman life, the living entities are not conscious of this constitutional position. But in the human form of life, they are supposed to know this through the system of the varnas, the social orders. As above mentioned, the Brahmana is the spiritual master of all the orders of society, and thus, Brahminical culture, culminating in the transcendental service of the Lord, is the basic principle for purifying the soul. In conditional life, the soul is under the impression that he can become the Lord of the universe And the last point of this misconception is to think oneself the supreme. The foolish conditioned soul does not take into account that the supreme cannot be conditioned by Maya or illusion. If the supreme were to become conditioned by illusion, where would be his supremacy? In that case, Maya or illusion would be the supreme. Therefore, because the living entities are conditioned, they cannot be supreme. The actual position of the conditioned soul is explained in this verse. All the conditioned souls are impure due to contact with the material energy in three modes of nature. Therefore, it is necessary that they purify themselves under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, who not only is a Brahman by qualification, but must also be a Vaishnava. The only self-purifying process mentioned herein is to worship the Lord under the recognized method, under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. That is a natural way of purification, and no other method is recommended as bona fide. The other methods of purification may be helpful to come to this stage of life, but ultimately one has to come to this last point before he attains actual perfection. Bhagavad Gita 7:19 confirms this truth as follows: Bahunam jam manamante gyanavam mam prapadyate vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabha. Let's read the verse again. All these different social divisions are born with their occupational duties and living conditions from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, for unconditional life and self-realization, one has to worship the Supreme Lord under the direction of the spiritual master. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chaksurmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karo Divachalam Pangum Langate Girim Yakripatamaham Vande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Paramanandamaravam Shri Chaitanya Mishwaram Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvyeva Cha Patitanam Pavanavyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha. So in the word for word, there is something that, well, let me pull it out here on my computer, and it says Shradaya. That's a word in the translation used with faith and devotion. However, Prabhupada taking the liberty, and he has a right to do that, that says unconditional life and self-realization. That's how he puts it in context, that there is, so what is this unconditional life? We hear the verse, Savai pumsa pravo dharmo yato vattira dokshaje haitukiya pratihata yatma suprasidati. We hear that the definition of religion, according to Sukadeva Goswami, when Parikshit Maharaj asked him, what's real religion? He said this is unconditional life. Unconditional means you don't stop for breaks. You don't take a heroin break during the practice of self-realization, and you don't do it because you're going to get something out of it, whatever it is, however subtle, however nice it may look. You don't take anything except that it is your condition, that our constitutional position to be serving the Supreme Lord with no expected reward. That's one of the differences between the inhabitants of the spiritual world and the inhabitants of the material world. The inhabitants of the spiritual world, they don't have an agenda, whereas in the material world, everybody does. I want something, where it is even philanthropists, that they may give tons of money for something. They want to be recognized as philanthropists. They do good. They open a wing at a hospital, or they help an orphanage, or they build habitats, or they dig wells in Africa to get purify water, or they volunteer as doctors, but they want something, even if it is not recognition, which is quite an alluring enticement. They want to feel good about it. So even that is not pure. Even the fact that you're doing good is still the mode of goodness, maybe, but not transcendence. In transcendence, there is no reward. I mean, there is a much higher reward by doing what one is supposed to do, which is an unconditional life of devotion. This is the reward is in the act itself, not afterwards. People do things because they expect something later on. But in spiritual life, the reward is now, as you do it, even though it may not seem to be so. As in when I was engaged in book distribution for many years, almost 2 decades, that I was distributing books, and it was tough many times. It was very slow and dry, and people were antagonistic and couldn't sell a book to anybody. And, it was long hours and uncomfortable and physically demanding and mentally torturous sometimes. But you could see that the reward, it was every day that the reward was coming. The reward was that my mind was controlled. And that is a super bonus. That is definitely the cherry on top of the cake. Because if you look around in the material world, no one's mind is under control. Everybody's just suffering a constant battle. Even if your life is good, even if you have money and prestige and adoring fans and loving relatives and a very good situation, still your mind will be torturing you. This is the consequence of living under the modes of nature. Under the modes of nature, we have no peace. That is the status quo. As you go, the modes of nature will give you trouble, and your mind will fight you, fight everything. It's the conditions. That's why a sadhu is someone who is actually not fighting against the modes of nature, is letting things happen and trying to rise above them. So book distribution was a great exercise to see what a real reward looks like, not just some temporary thing that I get an office with a carpet and windows and people who obey my commands. This is not a reward. This is just some temporary fix that helps no one. It's like another type of drug. So it's not that you are we are addicted to the material world. We have been around for a very long time, and we kind of like it. You just make the best situation you can. You tend to adapt to whatever situation. Someone that we used to live in Santa Barbara, California for many years, and we will drive to Los Angeles to do our business, which we had a vegan cafe at USC, the University of Southern California. And sometimes once a week, we will go to the farmer's market, to the big wholesale produce distributor to buy, ample supply of vegetables and fruits and things like that. And we will drive by an entire tent city of people who live in utmost poverty. They don't have anything. They have a tarp and a supermarket cart full of stuff. And that condition which seems unbearable to live in a, under a freeway in Los Angeles, which is, like a 8 lanes on each side, and constant noise, pollution, crime. But somehow or other, the living entity in a human form gets used to it. And they have the same pleasures and pains that someone living in a cookie cutter home neighborhood. The neighbors and the noise and the encroachment and the fence dividing the two so-called properties, and et cetera, et cetera. So one can get used to any condition of life, even if there is a lot of drawbacks and disappointments and sadness and poverty. And yes, there is the same elements are present within any situation. So Krishna says that the Varnashram system and the way people live comes directly from the Supreme Lord. This is not something that we can improve upon. Like there is another method that is better or more efficient, or no, there is no such thing. It comes from the Supreme Lord. So you can't be smarter than God. You can't make things happen just because you calculate. We calculate with our tiny little polluted mind that we can do better than God. We can create a method that is better than what the Supreme created. And we may not seem to be able to fit it as, okay, this Varnashram, yeah, that was good in Vedic times, 5,000 years and before that. Good for Satya Yuga, good for Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, Kali Yuga, not so good. We have to find a better way because the conditions are worse and it's difficult to implement a Varnashram system. No, still works. I had an experience as I was at the end of my brahmachari days, and since I had been running centers and doing preaching on my own and making devotees and distributing books and running temples and running groups of men and women Sankirtan as a brahmachari, and I had my own car, a credit card. I paid mortgage on the property. Basically, I was a grihasta without a wife, and yeah, I really didn't want a family. I didn't want kids. I didn't want to own anything. I just happened to be in charge of things. And I guess my guru, because of my independent tendencies and lack of submission, he gave me my own projects. So I didn't have to butt heads with some authority. So he made my mind the authority. My mind completely controlled me. So I was thinking I'm doing pretty good, but I was feeling out of place. I was feeling like there's something missing. Even though the program was successful, I was feeling I was just basically like you wake up one day and you go out and do things. You go to physical therapy and you're wearing a tutu. I mean, you will feel wrong about it wearing a ballet tutu. So it was that's how I felt. Like I was doing the right things and going to the right places, but I was wearing a tutu. I was supposed to be doing ballet at that time, so it felt really strange. So I asked my guru, His Holiness Sri Dayananda Maharaj, what is, I feel like I'm doing householder's job. I've been doing it for quite a while, and even though I don't want to change ashrams, and I'm engaged in the varna that I'm supposed to be engaged, like, you know, a mixture between Brahman and Kshatriya. That's what book distributors are. I feel like I'm out of place. So maybe I can just, instead of wearing white or wearing saffron, I can wear black. So I, you know, since I'm I'm in no particular place. And he said, actually, no, you can't do that. I said, why not? He's because you have to belong to the system, to Krishna system, the Varnashram system. So you can stay a brahmachari. You have my blessings, he said. Yeah, you can stay a brahmachari, or you can get married. Because if you don't belong to the Varnashram system, then you're unplugged from a source, and you will run out of juice. It's inevitable. So I thought, that's interesting. So I decided, okay, I will get married then, because, you know, I've been doing the brahmachari thing for quite a number of years. And even though I'm fine with the idea of being a brahmachari for the rest of my life, I think I'm not making much progress. I don't feel the potency associated with the varna and the ashram. So as soon as I decided that I was gonna get married, the next day I set up a book table at the university, Florida State University, and because I made a decision to basically reinstate myself into the Varnashram system, I felt like the potency came back. I was just, I had a punch. It's like a boxer that is, you know, very fancy and just goes around the other guy and hits him everywhere, but the other guy doesn't fall. So that's what I was doing. Fancy footwork, but no result. So as soon as I decided, okay, I'm getting married, then the next day I was selling books like anything, preaching people, inviting them over, using very powerful arguments that were coming out of the connection with Krishna. I felt the potency coming back. So this is not some lofty ideal that we read about in the Bhagavatam, and it was good for for Satya Yuga, but it's no longer current. This is actually that we need to use in our daily life, our connection with the Supreme Lord through the Varnashram system. And I was actually questioning Manidhar Prabhu the other day when he was speaking, that even though he was speaking about Kshatriya and Brahmana and so on, I said, yeah, but this is an argument that Ramananda Roy used when he was asked by Lord Chaitanya to explain, the goal of life. And he started with the Varnashram, and Lord Chaitanya rejected it. But the thing is, he didn't reject the system. He rejected that as being, okay, yeah, it's true, but it's not the ultimate. So Lord Chaitanya wanted to accelerate through the processes, obviously, because he created them. He didn't have any time to waste. He wanted to go to the Prema Pumartha Mahan, to the love of the gopis for Krishna. That was his intention, to get directly to the nectar, because Lord Chaitanya had two purposes in coming to this world. One was to deliver the conditioned souls in Kali Yuga, the most fallen age, by the process of Harinam Sankirtan. And the other, the internal process, was to understand the love of the gopis, especially Radharani, for Krishna. So that had to be accomplished, both things at once. And that's the you can say the origin of multitasking. Lord Chaitanya trying to understand the love of Radharani for Krishna, and also delivering the conditioned souls at the same time. So this is one thing, one topic I wanted to address, as Prabhupada said, unconditional life and self-realization, even though the word is Shraddha, which is faith or devotion or both. Then Prabhupada said in the purport that the parts, like a mouth, hand, thighs, and legs, are meant to render in service to the whole. And this is our position. We can never be the whole. We can never be God. We can, actually is a very uncomfortable position. If all of a sudden you were offered a position of God, say no. Just say no. It's not a good idea. You'll feel out of place. You will know what to do. Literally, it's like you're taken now out of your comfortable position, whatever you're doing. You're driving a truck, like Govinda Prabhu, or you're sitting at a desk in front of some fancy real estate, as Sahadev Prabhu always does. But if you're taken out of that position and you're telling you, okay, there's been a vacancy and now you have to run the universe. It's your job to maintain all the living entities and to listen to their thoughts. And oh, Jesus, no. I mean, Krishna, no way. I don't want to listen to everybody's thoughts. I don't want to know everything. Why do I need to think about how many liters of water in the Pacific Ocean and all that stuff? Who needs it? So the position of God is not a very good one. I mean, the position of Krishna is good, but the position of anything that has to do with control and omniscience, omnipotence, not so good. Not so good. Only someone who is fully qualified can do it. And I was thinking years ago that only a person without false ego can do this job. And who can say I don't have any false ego left? We cannot. We are not in any position to say that. Our false ego is basically ruining our lives, is telling us how to think, what to do, how to interact with others, and how to be sad, how to be upset, how to be angry. All these things that the false ego does is not doing any favors to us. So someone without false ego, like Krishna, he can do all the stuff because he has no particular attachment. That's why it's very difficult to understand Krishna. It's literally impossible. Even Lord Brahma, who's, as one will see at the end of this chapter, there are just a few verses to come to the end of the chapter. Lord Brahma, after years and years and years, and I'm not talking about, from 2016 to 2025, I'm talking celestial years. And Lord Brahma lives for a very long time. He lives for 311 trillion years. So one day of Lord Brahma is a very long time. It's 8,420 something, 23,000 years of ours. So for a very long time, he engaged in special meditation. I'm not sure what kind of meditation is that. We know that when Lord Brahma kind of opened his eyes, and he was in a lotus flower. He didn't know where he was. And he tried to climb down, but there was no way out of this. This was a very scary situation. You wake up and you don't know where you are. It's not like, you wake up and, okay, you are in the hospital, so you can see the monitors and you can see the nurses and the doctors. No, you wake up and there's nothing, just darkness. You're sitting on a flower that is sprouting out of a very scary looking ocean that, if you think the waves in Hawaii are large, wait until you get into the lotus flower where Brahma was sitting. Those are real waves. And then he heard the words tapa or tapas. He understood. Of course, the Italians may say what he heard was tapas. So when he heard it a lot, tapas, pasta. That's it. That's his solution. that to go home and make a meal. Tapas, 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 tapas. But no, it was actually austerity. He needed austerity in order to understand himself, to understand his situation. So after meditating for a very long time, according to anybody's calculation, he understood that the Lord is inconceivable. Imagine that, spending all that time to understand that you did not understand anything. It's like Socrates when he was offered the hemlock, the poison by which the so-called democratic government of Athens, power to the people. And that's the problem with democracy. Is like the comments on YouTube. The internet is populated by unintelligent people making comments. So the Greeks had a problem with Socrates because he was too wise for them. And he said, what are your concluding words? And Socrates said, I only know that I don't know anything. That was his conclusion, which was basically the same as Lord Brahma. At the end, he said, the Lord is inconceivable. I cannot grasp anything. I cannot understand things. But by the mercy and the power of Krishna, one can be empowered to understand certain things. One of the things is that one needs help. And the help comes in the form of a spiritual master. Someone who has distilled the knowledge that one requires and can convey to others. It's the same concept as having a teacher or a professor. Do you want to become a doctor? Read some books. That's it. Or watch some reruns of General Hospital and ER, and then you will be a doctor. No, you can't be a doctor like that. You need someone to guide you, even with the books, even with videos. So one goes to school and learns from a teacher who has imbibed the necessary knowledge and can convey it to others in a didactic way. So that's the idea. The spiritual master is dear to the Supreme, and he can convey the message and can explain it. Just like Prabhupada, he didn't translate the Bhagavatam literally. He actually gave it from the perspective of bhakti, which is the right perspective for us to understand it. I mean, it was, I used to read Marcuse and Camus and Angela Davis and, social, political, philosophical treatises when I was a teenager. And I thought it was important. That's why I read it, but I couldn't understand anything. It didn't make sense to me. My friends all got into politics, and many became leftists, and they thought that revolution should be the solution to our problems. But this is an external thing. The same thing that Prabhupada presented to Bhaktisiddhanta. When Bhaktisiddhanta preached to him, you have to convey the message of Lord Chaitanya to the English-speaking population. Prabhupada said, but we cannot do that until the British leave India, because they are exploiting us. And Bhaktisiddhanta said, political situations will change constantly and make no difference. Makes no difference. Whether you're ruled by the left or the right or the center, this is a political situation that will never affect someone's heart. Lord Chaitanya's message is the one that actually reaches into the heart of a living entity. And that's what you should be worried about. And that's what should be taught. So our dealings with the material world are basically, we are empowering our mind and ego to deal with the world and with others. And we miss the whole boat that way, which is the heart-to-heart connection through Krishna. And there is no question about it. We have the same Father of all living entities, animals and plants as well. The same Father. So we are brothers and sisters, all of us. No question. There is no difference between, okay, this person has this religion and this type of body and was born in this way and has this skin color and this gender. It makes no difference. We are brothers and sisters. We all have the same Father. We may not look alike, but we come from the same source. And we may definitely a chameleon and an elephant and a human being, they look very different from each other. But they're the same. They're the soul. They're all very intimately, closely linked with each other because they come from the same Father. And the occupation of all is the same. Of course, we have to reach to a certain level, just like the Brahman, Vaishnava, is the best of all occupations because it's the one that you get to understand Krishna consciousness in a very close way. And if you can teach it to others, become a guru. Like Prabhupada said, it's not like, okay, there are this many gurus and that's it. So it's close. The occupation, the position is close. Like if you want to get a job and there is like 18 openings for 3,000 people that show up, after the 18 posts are filled and there is some fallback, when there's a few that are, put on the bench just in case someone fails, then everybody else is out of the position. No, the position is open for everybody, is to be a guru, to learn, imbibe, practice the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, and then teach it to others in whatever possible way. It's not like everybody's going to be on the same level. Some people may not be able to speak publicly, as they had a survey explaining which ones are what are the scariest things for humans in America. And number one came public speaking, even more than being maimed in a car crash or having terminal cancer or, no, that's not as scary as speaking in public. Well, I must have missed the memo because I have no fear of speaking. I have very little to say, but I can say it in public. Definitely. No, not a problem. So even though we may only have a very small circle of influence, even within our family, you can teach your children, you can teach your spouse, or you can, try to teach your mind if no one else is paying attention. That's our position. We have to be a good student in order to become a good teacher. So that's the message. And then Prabhupada quotes the verse at the end of Bahunam Jamanamante. That is, the Gita says, after many births and death, he whose actually knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. And ends up saying that such a great soul is very rare. So it's not an ordinary being. Someone who actually understands, surrenders, understands Krishna consciousness. It's a very rare entity. Very, very rare. Because out of thousands, very few understand the Supreme. It requires an enormous amount of sukriti and tapasya. I mean, all these things that we may take for granted. And you may approach someone who is very erudite, educated, aristocratic, learned, but they don't understand the first thing about spiritual life, or even the need for it. That they are happy in the little soup. Prabhupada is interesting how Prabhupada in the I think the next verse 35, and also in the last 3 verses of the chapter, he uses the word froggish philosopher as and the purport 4 times, and 4 different purposes. He begins with that froggish philosophers. So, what is a froggish philosopher? The idea is that a frog is in a little pond, and some other frog went to see the ocean and came back, tried to explain to the frog, and the frog in the pond cannot conceive of the ocean. He can only conceive in reference to his own pond. So say, okay, the ocean is bigger than the pond, like twice as big, like 4 times as big, 8 times as big. Just he keeps trying to expand. How many times does this pond fit into the ocean? And the other frog is trying to say, no, you can't do that. That's not the math that will work. And the frog just every time indicates the size, just keeps puffing himself, inhaling air until he blows up. So this is a froggish philosopher, someone who actually tries to extrapolate from their own mental position where there is no escape, because the mind has a perimeter. And that was a problem with the philosophers, even like Plato, who was Prabhupada said Brahman realized, like Socrates and Plato, that there is an extrapolation up to the point of a perimeter. There is a limit to how far the mind can expand without help. So the spiritual master is the one who pokes a hole into the perimeter and brings information from the spiritual world. So that's where we fail. We try to do it all ourselves, like a child. Like a child, if you give a child advice or counsel or instruction, they will say, don't tell me, I'll figure it out myself. So this is what we are trying to do, acting like a child, trying to figure it all out ourselves without help. So that's the spiritual master's function, is a very thankless one, and is a position that we all have to fill in eventually, because we may want to be a grand international master chess player and a heavy metal guitar player and the temple president and whatever position you think you will be happy in. But actually, the only position you will be happy in is by practicing Krishna consciousness and teaching it to others. Because it's not enough to practice. We are not Bhajananandis, we're Gosyanandis. We come in a disciplic succession of preachers. So we have to become a preacher. If we actually want to take up the family business, we need to be preachers ourselves. We have to tell others what we learn. Whatever little realization we get, we can share it with others, and that way it will stick with us. Otherwise, what is it? Good for your diary? It's a nice entry in your journal, but what do you do with it? You're going to be buried with your journal, and it will amount to nothing. We need to actually give whatever we have to others in order to keep it ourselves, and it will expand that way. We'll get more realizations. All right. I had a few other things to say. Prabhupada also quotes from at the end of a verse in the Bhagavad Gita about another verse of these: the one who is in full knowledge and who is always engaged in pure devotional service is the best, for I am very dear to him and he is dear to me. That's the Gita 7:17. And then there is another verse that he quotes from the 11th chapter: obeisances to you from front, from behind, and from all sides. O unbounded power, you're the master of limitless might. You're all-pervading, and thus you're everything. So this is a very good realization of trying to understand who God is. We think, okay, eventually, if I exercise my mind enough, I will get the stamina, the intellectual stamina to understand Krishna. But it's like having one of these jawbreaker candies, you can just try your best, but the best you can do is to continue to suck at it for a very long time until the thing kind of vanishes. And the option is you try to understand the Supreme by your own effort, you will get nowhere. You will get nowhere at all. So we need to be humble and learn from wherever source is available. Sometimes the source of knowledge may come from an unexpected place. Many times it does. We are not able to see it. Just like there are signs in nature, like the way birds fly, and the way wind blow and noises come, you can understand the weather, you can understand omens, you can understand a lot of things. But if you don't have a training, you won't understand. It's like, just, I can give many examples. You probably understand this. So somehow or other, the source of knowledge, Krishna speaking to us, may come from a totally unexpected way through the wrong person, you can say, but it's not the wrong person. It's always the right way. Krishna uses all sorts of means to try to get to us, and we are kind of provincial and small-minded. So we want to identify the source of knowledge only from one spot, even if it is the guru. Wherever the guru says that's it, and whatever anybody else says, it doesn't really matter because it's not the guru talking. Well, that's a neophyte at best. That's kind of being nice, saying a neophyte. Someone who actually considers only the instructions of the spiritual master to be the spiritual instructions for us is less than a neophyte. The same person. What's the definition of a neophyte? Someone who sees Krishna in the temple as the deity in the altar, but there's nothing beyond the altar. Doesn't see devotees, doesn't see the guru, doesn't see Shastra, doesn't only sees Krishna on the altar. So the same thing taken to outside of a temple, sees the instruction of a guru as being the only instruction coming directly from Krishna. And everybody else is nothing, insignificant and unimportant. So in order to make advancement, we have to see Krishna everywhere. That is a big task. To see Krishna everywhere means anything, anyone can bring Krishna to you. Matter of fact, Krishna is sending messages constantly, and we don't get them. We don't get them. We have a very poor delivery system. It's like, we rely on, we get upset because we go to a store and have to wait in line behind two people to shop for some groceries. We just get impatient and upset. So we only go to stores where we are taken care of immediately. So in spiritual life, we want the same kind of service. You cannot wait. No patience, no tolerance. We just want instruction delivered by this person right now to me directly. So we have to be a little more open-minded and see that Krishna is constantly sending us signals and instructions and blessings in so many ways. And some are difficult to swallow. Like you want to take, it's like a child that goes to the doctor and needs to take a shot for a particular, there's an epidemic of cholera or malaria. And, the solution is to take a shot of something. And, hey, but, for the headache, you take a pill. Can I take a pill? Or can I take a sugar cube with a drop of the medicine? No, you can't. It has to be directly intravenously. You have to get a shot, and it hurts. It may be viscose, liquid, entering your body, and it will hurt. It will hurt. Joint will be swollen for a couple of days. Well, that's the way it's delivered. So Krishna sometimes delivers with sugar, sometimes without sugar, and sometimes with a large needle, and it's hard to take. But that's the way it comes. That's the way we're going to learn it. You're not going to forget. When Krishna sends an instruction with a long needle, you will remember that instruction because you don't want to get it again. Yes. So that's how things work. Krishna uses whatever method is available, whatever is most conducive, and that we can actually retain that knowledge. Because otherwise it comes and goes. We take opinions, whether it is from some wino or from Krishna, the same way, like optional. Krishna sends an instruction. It's like, a wino talking to you. Yeah, whatever. Who cares? So sometimes Krishna sends an instruction through a wino, and we miss it. We miss it. So we have to pay attention, because the universe, and I mean Krishna by that, is sending signals constantly to us. And we need to retain them. So sometimes an instruction may come in a very strange way that we cannot understand, we cannot discern. So let's write it down and let's look at it occasionally until we can tell, okay, this was useless, or no, this is actually quite important and I should retain this because it's helping me. I didn't see it then, but I see it now. There was a story of a Brahmin counselor to a king, and the king one day, and the Brahmin will always say, is God's mercy, it's Krishna's mercy on you, whatever it was. And it was, and the king will accept the instruction until one day he was kidnapped by some dacoits, and they wanted to actually he was in a battle or something like that, and finger was, he lost a finger in this battle. And when he asked the Brahman, the counselor said, that's Krishna's mercy on you. And he thought that this counselor, this Brahman, is a phony. What would he say that? I'd lost a finger. This is a horrible thing. So he put him in prison. He put his Brahman in prison. And then he was actually kidnapped by Durga worshippers, and they wanted to sacrifice him on the altar. But they saw that he was missing a finger, so he wasn't a perfect offering, so he was released. Then he understood, oh, the Brahman was right. It was Krishna's mercy, because if I had all my fingers, then I would have been killed. So sometimes it takes missing a finger to understand the mercy. So it may come in a very unusual or painful way. But the lessons are coming. They're constantly coming. So we have to understand that, first of all, we don't want to be God. And secondly, that we should understand who we are. We are servants. We're always servants. We always will be servants. There's no other positions available. Even the position of servant are not available. Only the position of servant of a servant of a servant, remove n amount of times, are available. All the positions of servants are already taken by all the inhabitants of the spiritual world. So we can only serve them in a very remote, removed position, which actually will make us closer to Krishna, that trying to elbow our way, like going to buy a ticket at an Indian railway station, at peak hour. We just try to elbow everybody out of the way to get our ticket into the train. No, Krishna is not the guy selling tickets behind the counter. Krishna is aware and eager to reciprocate with us. He can. Nobody else can. We think our relationship with Krishna is like a relationship with another being, but nicer. No, it's not like that. It's not like Krishna has room for everybody, and he has a personal, intimate relationship with everybody, and he can handle it. And it's the only thing that we want, really, because no one can fulfill this need for a relationship like Krishna can. He's the most dear to our heart, and we are the most dear to his heart. We need to get to that position where we accept our position and accept Krishna's position and settle once and for all that we are not him and he's never going to become like us. So what's the key? Love and devotion. And how do you get it? Oh, it's a long way, but we already started. So let's not give it up halfway. Like, it's like you're baking bread and you're tired of waiting for the dough to rise. So you decide to bake it 5 minutes after you knead the dough. Then you will get nothing. You will get just a hard, lumpy thing that tastes horrible. So let the devotion rise to the point that you can actually make good bread, and offer it to Krishna. All right. I spoke for an hour, which is kind of average, I will say. And now I will give room for questions, realizations, comments, criticism. Yeah, and my false ego needs to be in shape to be baked for Krishna. So go ahead, take your shots.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, His Grace SARVATMA Prabhu, for this wonderful, tantalizing question. There was many questions, reflections, realizations. You may want to ask or share. Please, you indicate by using the hand emoji or your physical hand, and you'll be asked to unmute to speak. I was actually thinking to myself, why is it that His Grace SARVATMA Prabhu, oftentimes when he speaks, he gives lots of references about his own life, and then getting to like the end part of your lecture, you answered this doubt I was having in my mind by saying that we are not Bhajanandis. So we just do not sit at one place and study the scriptures. We have to go out and then preach, share. And there is no better way of sharing than to share our own experiences with people. So that answers the doubt I was having, that why does Prabhuji always share so much about himself? But that also brings to light that whatever was done in Satya Yuga, like you were saying, is still available to us in this Kali Yuga also. So I personally would like to say thank you so much for sharing with us practically how relevant this teaching is, that as it was in the past, it still is available to us today and will still be available to us tomorrow. So devotees, if anyone has questions, like we said, please, you may go ahead and then raise your hand. You'll be asked to unmute to ask your question. Well, if I may start, I have one quick question. And I personally believe, like you already said, Prabhuji, that at some point you wanted to change your clothes to black, and your precious Gurudev told you you cannot do that. You have to be within what the Supreme Lord has created. And if you did that, then you'll be unplugged from the world. I very much enjoyed every bit and pieces of information you shared with us today. Now, my question is, we are supposed to have this Varanashram going on. That is a responsibility Srila Prabhupada has given to all of us to try to establish Varnashram Dharma in this material world. Now, in Krishna consciousness, we are trying to be Vaishnavas, and we understand that Vaishnavism is superior to this Varnashram system. For example, per the example you gave between Ramananda Rai and Lord Chaitanya's conversation. So my question is, in Krishna consciousness, or specifically in Hare Krishna movement, if we have this Varnashram system going on, how do we live in such a way that everybody is going to be accepted and everybody will have room and space to operate based on his Varana? Because if someone belongs to Hare Krishna movement and he is acting as a Sudra, and Sudras do not particularly take interest in cleanliness. So if someone is a Hare Krishna devotee and he considers himself a Sudra and he does not appreciate cleanliness, does he have any room in the Hare Krishna movement? This is my question.
Well, I think if Prabhupada created a house in which the whole world can live in, that means we have to have different rooms. You have room for the clean ones, you have room for the dirty ones. You have in our house, maybe not in the Didi kitchen on the main kitchen, but there has to be a kitchen for meat eaters. There has to be a kitchen, a room for people who actually have very bad habits, for those who have psychological problems. If everybody is, Prabhupada didn't say that I created a house in which most of the world can live in, but not the dirty ones, not the druggies, not the people with mental troubles, not the addicted to sex, not the. He didn't say anything like that. So there are different rooms, just like in a city, you see a gated community. How are those people different? They're different because they don't want the association of people outside of the gated community. They want to live peacefully. They want to know their neighbors. They want to know that their children are safe. They are living in a particular neighborhood because of a school system, because they think the school is better. They're not trying to close all schools. They're just choosing a better one. So within the house, you will find your space. You will find your place. You may not be fond of some of the people living in the house, but you have to let them in. So if you have Sudras, let's say at a farm community like Gita Nagari, I think that we have to create a space for Sudras to live. Because what is a farm? It's a place for heavy work. And the Brahmins, they don't like to get dirty. So basically we have Brahmins doing the Sudra work, but not Sudras. We're not preaching to Sudras to join. We are trying to get all Brahmins. We have this, as I often say, an inverted pyramid. The pyramid is the Sudras at the bottom because they're the majority, then some Vaishyas, then less Kshatriyas, and then at the top is the Brahmins. But we have the inverted pyramid. We have basically a lot of Brahmins and very few Shudras. So if you want work to get done, you have to engage the Brahmins in Shudra work. So we have to preach to everybody. You have to get Sudras to join. And of course, the Sudras, they're going to be smelly. They're going to, carry dirt around and going to walk around with shoes and indoors. So you just give them that facility that they will live in a place where they're going to, if you put I'm not doing a comparison between pigs and Sudras, but I'm saying if you put a pig in a marble floor, it's not going to work very well. That's not its nature. So for the Sudras, you have to create a corner of the community where they can live peacefully, and they can, if they need to break the principles, they can do it in their own community. And then they have to render service to the rest of society. You can't expect everybody to be on the same standard. That's a mistake. And eventually, among the Sudras, there will be some that rise to the level of leadership. And among the leaders, there may be some more intelligent people that you can actually explain certain things, how to raise the consciousness of their own community, et cetera, et cetera. You work it from ground up, but you give room to everybody. You may not want to share that kind of lifestyle. And, if a Brahman is invited to a Sudra's place, he may not like to be in that kind of environment, doesn't know if the food is properly cooked and clean and offered and the ingredients, like I've seen devotees. I've been to the house of devotees, even friends of mine, that they don't read labels. They go to the supermarket and they buy some stuff, and there is some garlic in there, and there is some, stuff, and they have in the bathroom, they have this shampoo or soaps that they have propylene glycol and parabens and all this stuff that is nasty, and they have artificial scents that are, and they have ice cream that had forbidden ingredients, and it's kind of, that's how they go about it. They don't place much importance into. So I limit my intake from those who I know. I will take prasadam in the house of people who I know what their standard is, what their consciousness is, what ingredients they use. But otherwise, I will decline because, I have a certain standard that I would like to maintain. I'm fastidious about it. You can say, well, he obviously has some problems. He has OCD and is very uptight. And I just like to keep a certain standard. So a Sudra may go to a Brahman's house and have a meal, but a Brahman may not go to a Sudra's house and have a meal, but they can share other things and they can live in the same community without problems. I don't think it's a mutually exclusive that the Sudras have to live in one continent and the Brahmins have to live in a different continent. They just have to tolerate each other. Just like you think the Sudras are dirty and not very smart, they don't discriminate well. Well, the Sudras are probably thinking that the Brahmins have OCD and they're fastidious and they're boring. And they're probably right. They're probably right. So don't mix them in a way that they will conflict with each other. Try to find a common ground. But as far as the house that Prabhupada created, everybody's welcome. And I don't think that's going to be much of a problem. Like, what will happen when? No, I don't think that the whole world is going to join the Hare Krishna movement. I'm not in that kind of illusion. I think people we have to encourage them in whatever way their practices are done. If someone is like even Anupama, Rupa Goswami's younger brother, he could not stop chanting Lord Rama's name. And even though he had Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami preach to him, I mean, it wasn't like, Bhakta Bob. It was these major figures who could melt stone. He could not convince his brother to change his approach. So that's fine. They accepted him. And Lord Chaitanya accepted that. He said, yeah, it's fine. So we have to be the same way. We have to be open-minded and allow people to do whatever they are best at and encourage them, kind of show them, okay, this is how you can engage this propensities that you have and purify them. And if someone has, I know devotees said they could not, eventually they went back to bad habits like smoking cigarettes, for example. So what do I tell them? You cannot smoke. You tell them, well, this is how you can give up smoking, gradually, slowly. Eventually try to minimize. Instead of smoking a pack a day, try to drink water half of the time, so you can go to half pack a day, and the water will help you, release the toxins, and eventually go to 5 cigarettes a day, and then eventually just smoke a cigarette after each meal, which is like 2 or 3 cigarettes a day, and then stop buying them. So only smoke when people offer you cigarettes. And I'm sure you hung out with smokers, so you will get a chance to smoke. And then eventually, one day, when they offer you a cigarette, you should say, oh, I don't smoke. And that's it. You made it. And it's a very gradual situation. You can't just give up cold turkey and take up Vaishnava Brahminical culture overnight. I mean, we tried. And we can see that out of all the people that join and try to become Vaishnava Brahmins, very few made it. And of those who made it, very few maintained it. This depends not only on our iron will, it depends on the mercy of Krishna, it depends on our association, offenses, all these things we have to take into consideration. So as the final conclusion of your short question to my long answer, it's like, yes, Shudras are fine. We just have to approach them in a different way and encourage them so they don't go away. There are so many communities that are looking at us as strange because we become strange because we're so different. We have to show them, no, we do the same thing that you guys do. We just have to, we have different levels where you can, go in any position you want. But you can, there is room for you. There is room for everybody.
Well, thank you so much, Prabhuji, for this beautiful answer. Because you're helping me, and I believe probably to understand that what Sri Prabhupada's house means is there is room for each and everyone, regardless of who they are, regardless of what they think, what they do, but they all eventually can be encouraged to take up the Krishna consciousness gradually in their own way, just like you were saying. And I remember reading Sri Prabhupada say that we should try to follow the acharyas, we should try to follow the teachings gradually. We should not jump. If we jump, we may break our legs. So thank you so much for the answer. Very helpful. Very helpful. The other way is okay. I think we'll go to Govinda Prabhu, then we'll go to Harichakra Prabhu. Govinda Prabhu, please.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much. My respectful obeisances to the Vaishnavas. Prabhu, my obeisances to you. And thank you very much for the wonderful presentation as always. The answer that you just gave, I think this understanding of Srila Prabhupada created this movement by which the whole world can live need to be explained to the understanding of our ISKCON leaders, because this explanation is very clear, but that is not what we see in our practices in our temples. One can, of course, we are all Sudras. That's what Scripture says, and most of us were very, very sinful, addicted to so many bad qualities, and so we come to the temple with our bad qualities, and like you rightly said, we can't just stop everything at once. It takes time, gradual process, encouragement, teachings. But what we see is that someone may come and try to even live in a temple, but the person may be there for maybe 6 months, a year or two, but sometimes he go back to the bad habit, like smoking, drinking, or illicit sex life. And all these, rules and regulations, the 4 principles, are to elevate our consciousness and to bring us to the moral platform by which one can actually practice Krishna consciousness. So therefore, these are all Sudra qualities. And so as soon as one is engaged in such kind of activities of breaking the 4 regulatory principles, we throw him out of the temple. But I believe temple is like a hospital, and I'll be surprised if one is not sick, then he will go for admittance in a hospital. So it means that whoever go to hospital must be sick, and that's why hospital is located for sick people. And so ISKCON is also like a hospital that is ready to admit all kinds of patients. And so if that is the understanding, and someone comes to try to live in a temple and try to heal himself, and at a point in the course of trying to heal himself, go back to the bad habit, and then we throw him out of the temple. So this is what I have practically seen, because I used to live in a temple also for many years, and so this is a practice. How do we address this? This answer you just gave can solve much of this problem, because some souls are very sincere, they really want to serve, but they are not allowed to do as much as they want to, and so they go back to the bad habit. But we don't have any mercy for them. We just throw them away, push them outside. So I'm really touched with these answers we give. But how can we give this understanding to our leaders, especially the 10 presidents, so that we can have this mercy and compassion for whoever try to adopt this lifestyle of Krishna consciousness?
Thank you, Prabhu. Let me add something that probably when I joined, the majority of devotees lived in a temple, and there were just a few householders and weirdos living outside, which in our conception, they were just as good as blooped. They were no good. There was only 2 standards. If you live in a temple, you're a devotee. If you live outside, you're a fringy. You're just an outsider, and you will never measure up. I think that your concept of the temple being a hospital, I think, is more applicable to a halfway house. We have to get. I think the idea will be to get a rural ashram where, like used to be, like Gitanagari, New Vrindavan, these were places where you send those devotees from a city that they didn't fit, or they had some weird quirks, or they had some bad habits. So you send them out there, and hopefully they will get better. But in temples, it's like expecting, okay, everybody who attends mass in a Catholic church is a priest. No, they're congregation. They go back to their homes and they practice to whatever extent they can. So I think the conception that the temple is a hospital, the temple is actually the house of the priests. And that's why, because we had the urgency, we put everybody inside that house, which wasn't meant for everybody. We have to have, I think, country ashrams and monasteries, places where people can really heal, not a place where, you expect a certain standard. And, like I was living in the when I was running a center in New Haven, Connecticut, I would spend half a week in New York distributing books, and I would stay in the Brooklyn Temple. Now there was some money missing all the time that from the ashram. Somebody was actually stealing, and we found out there was a bhakta from Puerto Rico that he will take money and from the devotees. Now, I was fortunate because he only took half of my money, half of my collection, because he liked me. So, this thief will only take half of my collection. So someone like that, no, it's not suited to live in a temple. Or when I went to Chile in South America, when I arrived there, I washed my dhoti. Yes, I actually wore dhotis, and in the very, very early 80s, not for very long. Then I started wearing pants. But I washed my dhoti, and before it was dry, half was missing. Somebody stole it to make copins or gamcha out of it. And then the other half, even before it was fully dried, somebody came and took another piece. So it was, I was living in a den of thieves. I had to take an Indian trunk to a RV factory for them to weld a huge locking mechanism so I could keep my precious possessions like a kurta and an extra bead bag and things like that, and my couple of books from being stolen, because I live among thieves. And these are the people that we admitted, and it's not like there's no room for them. Sure, just put them in a place in the country where they can do no harm. They can offer some work to do. And when you say we are all Sudras, yes, that's what the scriptures say. But some people have kshatriya tendencies. Some people have mercantile or cow protection tendencies. Some people have studious and teaching tendencies. So even among the Sudras, the base, people are different, and their propensities can be engaged. And we actually have a lot of work to do. And it's not just the leaders. The leaders are also Sudras. So how can you teach a Sudra anything? Some people are in leadership position because by default, I was actually running places because there was nobody else to run them. I wasn't qualified. I didn't have the tendency to do that. I didn't want to, but I had to. So some people may be in position of leadership, totally unqualified, just because they ended up there because there was no one else. Who wants to be a temple president? I mean, in the old days, if they went around in a 40 devotee temple asking, who would like to be temple president, you will get 40 hands. I want to be temple president. Nowadays, you have 12 people instead of 40, and you ask who wants to be temple president, and they will be like texting each other like, yeah, forget it. I'm going back to my mom's house. I don't want to do this. So times have changed, and our leaders, I don't think they know what to do with it. They're just overwhelmed by what's going on, and people are different nowadays. They don't have very many skills. They have a lot of mental problems. They don't listen very well. So you have to yeah, you have to adapt. And that's what we are not very good at doing. We are actually trying to implement rules without understanding the meaning of it. Why do we do these things? And we don't accept, even though for ourselves, we accept that Krishna consciousness is a gradual uh, process, because we definitely give ourselves a lot of slack because we haven't made much advancement. But for others, no, we hold them to a higher standard. So we don't want to accept whatever position they're at. We want them to jump all the way to the top and be, follow this and it will be like that. But it didn't work for us. We're still struggling. So how can we expect others to come up to us? That we ourselves don't hold. So anyway, it's a lot of work to do. And I don't envy any of the leaders of a movement. They're dealing with a very, very bad hand. It's like poker. You get a bad hand, you have to cheat your way out of it, or you have to fold. So what do you do?
Well, thank you.
It's not easy. Prabhu, thank you very much for the explanation. I see that it's not easy, because if you say the temple is meant for priests, that priest has to be trained before he becomes a priest.
That's another thing. We are not
Yeah.
trained. Yes.
Yeah, he has to be trained before he can be qualified as a priest. And where is he going to be trained? Not all places has facilities like Gitanagri. Most of our temples, we only have the temple, and we don't have separate places for training brahmacharis or training pujaris and all that. So we all come to the temple. Those who have the desire to stay in the temple, they come straight to the temple with all their, their impurities. They come with everything. And so, what would you suggest? Places where they don't have facilities for training, but people want to live in the ashrams, and sometimes they go back into the bad habit. What would be your suggestion? If such an element manifests from those living right at the temple.
I'm not sure. Even Gitanagari, with all the facility and so on, people are not trained. They're not trained at all. How many brahmacharis do you see in Gitanagari? Zero at the moment. Zero. And are the devotees trained? Even in the services, somebody's named the kitchen manager or the devotee care in charge, or this or that. They're not trained. They're just thrown into the wolves, and they have to figure it out themselves. So even a place where there is facility, they're not trained. We don't have enough people to do it. We don't have enough. And of those that we have, they're too busy, or they're not interested, or they're not capable of training others. So I think we will have to eventually boil the milk. The boil the milk means only the qualified will stay. That, okay, we went for quantity, right? In the beginning, we preached to everybody, allow anybody to join, created temples and this and that, but we didn't boil the milk. We just allow everything to go. Now I think we have to boil the milk and see who stays. And those who are qualified naturally will give shelter to others and train others. But if people don't want to be trained, what can you do? You can speak until you turn blue. And if nobody's listening, what's the point of your speech? It's not going to get anywhere. So you have to get people who want to be trained. And we have to change in a very structural way. First, we have to get intelligent people who can distinguish between basic and details. Like we are actually preaching about details as if they were basic principles. What do people know? I mean, what's the essence? There's very few that can actually discriminate between what's the essence and what's detail. So we have a movement that is very strange, looks very strange to others. And why would anybody want to join something that seems so strange to everyone? We have to become normal, not in the sense that we eat meat and smoke cigarettes. We have to become normal in the sense that people can relate to us, that we are nice and relatable, not that, for every, just strange things come out of our mouth that are not relatable at all. And in order to train someone, you have to gain that person's confidence. You have to become friendly and nice and relatable, that they see you as an uncle or the grandfather or the father or a friend, some kind of relatable position. Otherwise, your talk will not have any effect. It's just some talk about chemistry or organic chemistry or nuclear physics, interesting, but you don't want to become a nuclear physicist or a organic chemist after hearing a talk. So our talk about Krishna consciousness has to be accompanied by a lot of human interaction where people actually want to be with us and want to be like us. So it takes a lot of internal maturity to get to that point. So I don't know. Can we fill up the temples? Not likely. Not the way we are going about it. We can fill them up with Indians, but because of deity worship, if you stop deity worship, the Indians will go away. They will go to another temple where they do deity worship. Most of the congregation have no interest in the philosophical tenets of Krishna consciousness. Most of the congregation doesn't get the philosophy. They just get, why people come to Krishna, to the temple, because they worship Krishna, so they worship God in a very nice way. So we will get the pious benefits of worshiping God because they are nice to me, because they cook well, because they're nice to kids. Has nothing to do with the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. Nothing. So first we have to be learned in the sense that we practice and we know how to convey it to others as well, not just because we can memorize and spew verses right and left. And then we have to be nice. We have to be attractive. Otherwise, just, if you want community sense and niceness and so on, send them to the Mormons. They're good at that. The Hare Krishnas, yeah, they may have a best philosophy, but they're not the best at community building. So let's learn from others. As I was saying in the beginning, messages may come from non-devotees, may come from unexpected sources, but Krishna is definitely talking to us. He's telling us. Because the topic is very current. This is what you were bringing up. It's not something new. It's something that is in everybody's, a lot of people's minds. And we have to fix it. We know. Like you drive a truck, right? If you have a flat tire, you may be able to drive for a while, but eventually we'll have to stop. So I think it's time for us to stop and change the tires, all of them.
Well, thank you so much, Prabhuji, for
Hare Krishna.
this practical analysis. Shubha Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam, Krishna Buddhism, all glories to Srila Prabhupada,
Right.
all glories to the Assembled devotees. Thank you very much, Prabhu. just listening to the analysis being given on this practical problem that seems to be the problem within the ISKCON society. I think again and again, everyone, those who know me here know that I'm an advocate of an ashram. But from what we're saying so far, I get again the realization that what Prabhupada probably must be having in his mind when he said my mission is incomplete without an ashram is because he realized that it was time to to delineate the different ashrams, the different groups. I mean, everyone was together in the beginning, but he realized at the point now it's time to actually have the rare priests from those who have come, who are, Vaishyas, who have Vaishyas tendency, and etc. I think that's what he wanted. That's exactly what he was thinking. So it's so clear that at some point, in order to grow and be meaningful to the society, we just have to realize that in one way or the other, we have to address this issue of separating the seeds from the chaff. Everyone comes together. We love Krishna consciousness, but some people are economic refugees. Some people are just, social workers. And some people are actually real spiritual seekers, who want to give their life to God and serve God. So Prabhupada was saying that this is high time that this aspect, this part of Krishna consciousness, it's high time we put that in place. But unfortunately, time was running against him. I don't know how anyone on earth will not understand that and start saying, Vanashram, it's not whatever it is. I mean, all those kind of things people say. I don't put my money into it because what Prabhupada wanted is so clear. So, yes, Prabhupada built a house, like you rightly mentioned, and Govinda Prabhu was also trying to follow up, but I was having that in my mind, and then you actually said it. That the ISKCON is for the whole world, right? But ISKCON and the ashram are two different things. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness is not the ashram. Prabhupada gave conditions for living in the ashram. He rightly said, no sick person, no invalid, people who have no mental, proper mental stability should not stay in the temple. Prabhupada did mention conditions for living in the ashram. So the ashram is different from the International Society for, it's like we're saying Catholic Church and the seminaries or the monastery. They're not the same thing. They're not the our understanding is very much, I don't know how to place it. We don't seem to get it. So I believe that if we have the proper vision, then Krishna consciousness will be paradisical. Beautiful is what the world needs. But we need the leaders who could have that vision of how to put this in the right place for the benefit of everyone. Thank you. That's just my contribution. I don't know if you have something to say on that line. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. I agree with you. Prabhupada gave conditions to live in the ashram. The ashram and the varna is, even though we still continue to say we have to bring varnashram to the world and so on, the world is pretty much divided in varnas and ashrams, and particularly in our movement, people find their own place. Brahmins get to be noticed right away. They want to be Brahmins. Kshatriyas, they have that nature. Vaishyas, they start to do business. The thing is, and Shudras, they like to work or play music or do art or whatever. So it's a way we have to find a way, excuse me, that they can engage their propensities and add Krishna consciousness to it. That's probably missing a little bit, that at the, okay, you do what you're good at or what your propensities are, but then you contribute to the cause. And we may not be able to teach the whole world or the whole society, but at least we can influence our own little circle that we can actually get people to appreciate Krishna consciousness, even though they may not become Krishna conscious themselves, but they can appreciate that. So that's a very good start. Instead of seeing us as a alien and foreign and strange, they can actually relate to us. Like I will, well, here, because I live in the country, I live in the middle of nowhere. But when we live in the city, I will always make sure my neighbors got prasadam. And these are the weapons. These are our weapons. And Prabhupada said, the big equalizer, kirtan and prasadam. Those are our weapons. This is how you can actually make people relate to us by giving them Krishna consciousness in a way they can actually take it. And this is also the great equalizer for devotees. If you invite devotees for prasadam, if you have kirtan with devotees, then that common denominator will become very strong. Instead of like, you do this, I do that, you are this, I am that. Instead of separating ourselves by our varna and ashram, we will actually come together. It's kirtan and prasadam. So it's pretty simple. The program is very simple, and we just have to do it. Just wherever I go, I try, I go to physical therapy. I'm going every couple of weeks. I used to go once a week. I always take prasadam. So all the therapists, when they see me, they just start drooling because they know something good is coming to them. And when I had neighbors, I will give them prasadam. I will. Very popular today. So somehow I have to make sure. I have to make sure that I give them something that they can take, not just, like a doctor. Okay, so someone has a serious disease, and you have to give them a particular dose. That's just as important as the medicine. A particular dose that they can take. A child has, some thing that can be cured by, heavy doses of something, whether it's radiation or, antihistaminics or steroids, whatever it is. But the doctor has to see, okay, this guy weighs 80 pounds. I can't just bombard him with a ton of stuff. So when we meet people, we should meet them where they are at, not where we want them to be, because we're gonna kill them. If you have a candle burning, you don't bring 5 gallons of water to extinguish the candle. That's an overkill. You just, put your fingers like that, or put a couple of drops. That's it. So when you have someone who you don't know how much they can take, give them the minimum dose, see if they can take more, and they get better by it. So again, kirtan and prasadam, that's, and if they can only take prasadam, then give them that. And don't give them some weird looking stuff. If someone is ready, is nice and appreciates you, and you want to give them some food that has been offered to Krishna, don't give him halava out of your hand. That is a no-no. Just, make something that they can actually relate to. People don't relate to round things either. They like squares. This is America. You cut things in squares. So you cut them in squares. and given to them in a nice little cup, on a nice little plate, not in your hand, some amorphous, weird, gooey looking thing, but it's prasadam. Yeah, maybe a devotee can appreciate that. But I wouldn't appreciate if some brahmachari comes to me with halava in their hand and wants to put it on my hand. No thanks. I don't care who ate it. I don't care how many mahas you put before the word prasadam. I'm not taking that from you. You know, make it relatable. All right. I think Hari Chakra has.
Yeah. Hari Chakra, Prabhu, please see me unmute. I think, Prabhuji, you're giving us a dose suitable for our body weight. So it's beautiful.
Thank you.
Hari Chakra, Prabhu, please go ahead.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you very much for your explanations. And I think you are getting a little bit younger. So my question is, when you were speaking, you made mention of how we have to, and even Saadev's question, when Saadev asked you the question about how so many times you preach and you give your personal life as examples. Yeah, we could see a lot of things wherever we go, whether it's in the Islam religion or Christianity, people keep quoting, and Peter said, and Paul said, and James said, but they never ask themselves, what are you saying? And similarly, in our line, we always hear that we should make references to the acharyas. Yeah, we should make references to scripture. So does that mean that we as devotees, we don't have realizations now that is relatable, that can, help some other people relate to Krishna consciousness? And if we do, how are you going to be able to apply it? I mean, how do we correlate that to devotees always saying that whatever you are saying, is it scriptural? Can you give a reference? But practically speaking, what I'm realizing is that there are certain things that you yourself will experience that you wouldn't know how to make a reference to. So my question is, on issues of this nature, how do we actually relate it to each other, like to ourselves? Like I get a realization and I'm trying to explain my realization to someone. The person asks me, are you, which acharya said it? Which scripture, which part of the Bhagavatam said? Then how would I explain myself? So if you have any ideas, Prabhu, I think I want to hear them.
Okay, that's a very good question. I will say that when you're in an environment where people require scriptural quotation in order for you to prove a point, you can ask even that person, can you, this is what I think about this situation, and I cannot think of a scriptural quotation from this, but I can quote a friend of mine who told me this story, or I can tell you from my own life that actually this works. And you can say, like we tend to answer, people ask questions, we tend to answer right away. Oh yeah, this, that, and this and that. But actually, sometimes I have to say, you have to give me some time to think about it. I'll get back to you. And then I may consult someone else more advanced, and there are many, to be able to provide a good quote or a good reference or a good example or something from the biography of one of the saintly persons that we have in our history. I'll give you an example of something non-scriptural that made an impact in my preaching once. There was this Bhakta in New York, Bhakta Danny, nice Jewish boy from Queens, with he was young, so his parents were young, and they were more or less my age. So because we were friendly, he said, my parents are coming to the temple to visit. So, these successful New York yuppies, from some upscale community in Queens, I would like you to meet them. So they were coming for the first time to see their son in their ashram situation. So we sat, downstairs. There was, a Sunday program. There were some tables and chairs. So we sat at the same table and we started talking. And I could see that they were very smart and they were favorable. They weren't exactly devotee material at the time, but they were favorable. They loved their son. And so they asked kind of the right questions. So I took my time and I took them in a kind of Krishna conscious journey without trying to overwhelm them. And I could see that I got their full attention. They were actually totally into it. But then towards the end of it, of my little soliloquy, they came to the realization, hey, wait, we came to see our son and try to convince him to be like us, not, come to hear this guy to this trying to convince us to be like them. So when they kind of realized that the situation wasn't under their control, that actually they became attracted to Krishna consciousness in a indirect way, they immediately presented a quote like, okay, now we have to present our philosophy. That's how they felt. Like, oh my God, we cannot be caught here agreeing with everything they say. So they say, well, to us, the greatest joy in life is to see Pablo Casals. I knew who he was. Pablo Casals was a cello player from the mid 19th century, 20th century, from Spain, who was changed the way musicians play the cello after himself, and playing Bach, Johann Sebastian Bach, greatest classical composer possibly, in front of a sunset and a tear gliding down his eye. So that's the greatest. They were talking about intellectual, artistic, emotional reactions. That this is our greatest joy in life, to see someone playing the favorite composer in front of a beautiful sunset, and he's, because of his soft heart, seeing, how a tear came down his eye. And Krishna gave me inspiration. I said, well, that's very nice. I would like to introduce you to the person who created the sunset and also gave the emotions and the sensitivity for the person, for Pablo Casals to react that way, and also gave him the skill to learn how to play the cello like that. His name is Krishna. Imagine the emotional depth of someone like that. And that shut them up, that they could not reply to that. I never saw them again. So maybe my preaching wasn't so good, but they could see that Krishna consciousness is so deep that it's not like, they give you something and you can't deal with it. Okay, yeah, you're right. Krishna consciousness gives you the tools to understand everything in the right perspective. So if they presented someone who was so sensitive that could cry in front of a, beautiful music composed in front of a sunset, well, imagine the one who created all that, the one who gave a skill to that person, the one who gave inspiration to Bach to write that particular music. So I didn't quote scripture. I just, presented some common sense conclusion to what they say. So I think it's up to us to listen to the audience that we have and try to reciprocate in a way that they will actually understand. So for, if you tell that to someone who is a, born again Brahman, they won't understand what you're saying. They don't care. But if you say it to someone who is sensitive, like these people, they will actually relate to it. So again, if everything else fails, prasadam will work. So that's my conclusion, that a good prep will do the work if your mouth cannot, if your brain is not working. But you're a smart person, Hari Chakra. I'm sure you'll find a way. You just have to make sure it's the right audience. Sometimes we fail to identify the audience. We say the right thing, but to the wrong person. Or we said the wrong thing to the right person and we miss them too. You can definitely blow it by saying the right thing because that person is not ready. So we have to be very discriminating in how we approach people with Krishna consciousness. One thing will work for one and won't work for another one. I'm sure you can.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And secondly, like what you said about Krishna gives his message to you, his mercy, in diverse ways. Sometimes it comes through somewhere you are not even expecting it to come from. Yeah, that is also very, very practical, because there is a story that I used to tell people. A friend of mine was relating to me that he saw it himself, that a lawyer had parked his car close to a drain, and immediately he came out of the courtroom. He saw that he has a flat. He had a flat, so he started taking the nuts, the wheel nuts out. He took everything and he took the tie out. And just as he opened his trunk to get the spare tie to put in, mistakenly he hit the nut. The nuts were on the concrete. He hit the nut and all the nuts fell into the drain. And the guy was confused. He didn't know what to do. He's a whole lawyer. So he decided, he put the spare tie back into the trunk. He locked his car. He was about to leave. Meanwhile, all this time, there was a lunatic who was just lying down watching this man do whatever he was doing. And just as the man was about to leave, the lunatic started laughing. He busted into laughter, big, and was laughing so hard. And he said, if it were me, I would take one from here, I'll take one from here, take one from here, and put it on. Then, immediately, the lawyer got realization. What? He never, something he never even thought about. So he came back, he opened his trunk again, took the wrench, and he took one knot from each tire. So this time, all the tires were having 3 knots, which was good for him to take home. But this information was given to him by a lunatic who was just lying somewhere watching him. And he is a lawyer, a whole lawyer who has just returned from the courtroom. He didn't. So yeah, like you said, sometimes Krishna will give us some message, and because of our egos are so big that when the message is coming, we don't even give it the chance to get the better part. Get to us, and we miss it. So Prabhu, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Actually, yeah, that's a great example. I would not have thought of taking one of
from each tire.
that is brilliant. That is brilliant. You don't need a lawyer to do that. You just need to listen to the right message with the right mentality. Krishna is trying Krishna is constantly trying to speak to us, and we are just too busy. Our mind and our ego is always interfering, So it's like hearing someone on a shortwave radio, like a lot of interference, a lot of noise. So the message doesn't come very clear. So we have to chant, so this channel becomes clean and we can hear. Prabhupada said, a pure devotee takes instruction directly from the Lord. Directly. The Lord is talking. He's talking to everybody, but only the pure devotee has a clean heart that he can hear an instruction. So let's hope one day that will come.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Prabhuji, for this amazing and interactive discussion on the topic of Srimad Bhagavatam. Wow. Well, dear devotees, we come to the end of the Sangha. We wish that someday all we would have to do is to have such beautiful discussion without any interruption. But there is an interruption at the moment because devotees have to go and resume different things devotees were doing. So with that being said, Prabhuji SARVATMA Prabhu, we can't thank you enough. We truly appreciate your presence here and the delivery, which is so practical, everybody can relate to. And it is our prayer that we can learn these lessons and try to apply them in our own lives to make ourselves improve and also affect the world around us. With that being said, we're going to humbly request all the devotees to kindly unmute, and we all chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to express our deepest appreciation to our revered speaker today, His Grace SARVATMA Prabhu. Jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare
Hare
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Hare
Hare.
Hare.
Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha, Kripasanubhya Evacha, Patitanam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha.
Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai.
Jai,
His Grace SARVATMA Prabhu Ki Jai.
Jai.
Samar Vaishnava devotees Ki Jai.
I want to say thank you to the devotees for giving me the opportunity. So I'm nothing but your servant, aspiring servant. I hope to become one day. I'll become your servant. You may not want that, but I hope I thought I can do that.
Well, thank you so much, Prabhuji. I don't know if that